Dispatchers help callers on the worst days of their lives. For over 25 years, we've been there. A silent partner in millions of calls thanks to our redundant and diverse networks that ensure call delivery. Today, cities are bigger, traffic more congested, and the challenge is more complex. But you're never alone, because InDigital is quietly improving, implementing, and driving the next generation of 911, so you're supported in every situation. Make the switch at indigital.net.
My job is all about purpose.
Just the ability to make a difference, to help someone be able to go home at the end of the day.
My great-grandfather started the volunteer fire department in Springfield, Nebraska. My grandmother was a nurse. My uncle was a fire chief in Atlanta, Georgia. So somewhere down the line, it was my purpose to be doing this.
Yeah, we're a family here.
The data we get from Rapid SOS is life-saving.
Have you ever met a 911 professional and asked, what's the worst call you've ever taken? Well, here's your answer. I heard your last breath the night you flipped your four-wheeler. I tried to call you the day you committed suicide by driving your car into a tree. Blue face, cold to the touch. I helped you with CPR after you found your infant face down, not breathing. It messed me up. I did everything I could, but it wasn't enough. You were with me from the beginning, Grandma. 27 years later, I took the 911 call when you died. How fitting to be there for me in the beginning, and I was there for you in the end. I miss you, Grandma. I am 911. This is but a glimpse into the world of emergency dispatch. But what is it really like to answer a call during someone's nightmare? What is the impact of the first responder answering the call? Available on Amazon or where you purchase your favorite books and ebooks. Imagine listening. Your worst day is our everyday.
This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned.
Okay, so in the laundry room, I heard snoring, and I thought maybe someone is just snoring really loud from one of the rooms, and one of the apartments. So I'm walking through, and I'm getting closer, and it's getting louder and louder, and then I realize it's coming from the laundry room, and then I see something that I never expected that I would see. And I said, "What did you see?" And she goes, "Sir, there's a man who's currently in the laundry room, passed out. He must have been drinking. He must be drunk, because there's bottles all over, but that's not the thing that I just." And I said, "You're doing good. You're doing great. Let's continue. What else happened with this person? Is he hurt? Is there something?" She goes, "I don't think he's hurt at all." She goes, "There's bottles everywhere. He smells of alcohol. He's passed out. He's asleep. He's snoring, but he's also butt naked."
Welcome to Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them.
Hey, what's going on? This is Ricardo with the Code 7 Podcast Network, and this is going to be episode 635 of Within the Trenches, True Stories from the 911 Dispatchers Who Live Them. This episode is sponsored by InDigital, a leader next-gen core services, as well as Rapid SOS, Safer Together. And a big shout out, as always, to subscribers of the podcast. Thank you all very much, but especially all of you who are here watching, listening, supporting, and sharing. Thank you for everything, because I wouldn't be able to do everything that I do if it wasn't for all of you. Truly. I started all this stuff. However, if it wasn't for all of you supporting what I do, it wouldn't be what it is today. And so really quick, what is it today? Because it is December 31st, 2025. It is New Year's Eve. This year has gone by so fast. So much stuff has happened, and I was thinking of doing kind of a recap episode of the whole year and share some stories on here and stuff, but I thought, you know what? I'm going to share a few stories and a tribute, a look back at some past New Year's Eves, a couple of them in dispatch, share those stories and go from there. But again, just kind of looking back, I never thought everything that I do today would be what it is. Because when I started all of this, the earliest version of what I do in 2010, it was all because of a college project that I did. Sharing stories, dispatch stories, because people don't understand what it is that we do. And soon, a project that I was working on will amplify that even more so. Some of you saw a preview on social media. I'll just leave it at that. Because if you're following my social media, then you know what I'm talking about. If not, then that's an incentive for you to check it out and follow if you want, if that's your sort of thing. And you might hear kind of a clicking or hitting. It's this chord right here because I'm sitting back a little bit. The reason I'm sitting back a little more than I usually do is because of the framing. So I'm just testing something. But either way, a lot has happened. And so when I said, what is it now? Well, now the podcast, this is episode 635. 635. And I'm close to hitting 2.4 million downloads. Million, not thousands, not 100,000, 2.4 million downloads of Within the Trenches podcast. Something I never thought would ever happen. But again, it's because of all of you that it has. So I thank you for that. Stories, important 911 dispatch stories being pushed out all over the world. Amazing. And it's also heard in about 50 or 60 countries, something like that. Again, never thought. And I don't ever toot my own horn, but I'm tooting it today. Because it's good to reflect on those good times. Even those hard times when no one was listening. And now people are. And have been for years. I've been doing this for over a decade. And it has truly been a humbling experience, but also an honor to have your trust, to share your stories, and get them out there. So thank you all for that once again. Episode 634 went out actually just last week. The day on the 23rd, I believe I put it out. I was sitting in a parking lot of a Starbucks. I had some work to do, and I knew I needed to put an episode out. I have a bunch of episodes already lined up to go, but I thought, I kind of want to save these episodes for the first of the year. Excuse me. And just do a couple episodes during Christmas week and New Year's Eve where it's either a recap or it's just me sharing some stories to go along with the holidays. So that's what I decided to do. And that's what I'm doing with this episode as well, which is why it's just me here with you. And I don't know why I'm singing that, but here I am. And I'm excited to be here with you as always. But yeah, last week, sitting out there, I was in Pennsylvania and visiting some amazing friends of ours. And I'm sure that people saw me as I was talking. I had one of my wireless mics on my left side on my shirt, and I'm just sitting there talking. And again, I'm sure people were pulling in, seeing me, and thinking either he needs more coffee, or he hasn't had enough, or that was the same thing, or he's had too much, is what I meant to say. And you know what? Maybe I've had too much coffee already. That's why I couldn't get that out. But I got it done, put it out there, shared some stories from the past. It was a lot of fun to do, and we're going to be doing that today. So I hope everyone had an amazing Christmas. I know we did, and we got to head into town to run the Rocky Steps, the steps right there at the museum, which is funny. If you look it up on Google Maps, Waze, Apple Maps, whatever you use for your GPS, you can actually look it up as the Rocky Steps, and it leads you right to it, which is really cool. So we were out there. There's two statues. There's one down at the bottom of the stairs off to the right, which is an enormous one. Not that the one on top of the steps isn't enormous, but this one is way bigger. So I got pictures of that one, got pictures up on the top of the steps, and my family and I, we ran those steps. But they also had a pop-up store for Rocky. And my kids and I are huge fans. I won't say how much money I dropped, but it was ridiculous. We got sweatshirts, t-shirts, beanies, magnets, ornaments, like all kinds of stuff. They also had the hat that he wears, which was like $150. I almost bought it either way. And then they also have the belt from the movie. That was $285. I almost got that. I almost bought it. I didn't, but I almost did. Had I been there by myself, I probably would have bought the hat, the belt, they were selling the Italian Stallion robes, the gold one. Yeah, dude. I would have been screwed because I would have bought everything. Yeah. There was so much stuff that I wanted to buy, but I didn't. I held back. But it was still a lot of fun. Like, we got to run those steps, and my kids were just loving it. They just loved the fact that we got to experience that. Because again, we're huge fans, and it was a good time. And then on the way back, we ended up stopping in Centralia, Pennsylvania, which there are two sections, and we were at the section that was at the end, so we didn't get to see the church, the lone church that's there, but it's basically a ghost town. And in 1999, now I know that people might argue this, because I too am a Resident Evil fan, which is survival horror in video games. But in 1999, a game that really set the stage for psychological survival horror in video games was a game called Silent Hill. And in that game, when you're walking through, it looks like fog and snow, that's coming down, but it's actually ash because it's burning underneath the town. And that town it's a crazy game. If you've never played it, check it out. The newest one that came out, Silent Hill F, is a masterpiece. Not everyone will say that, but I am saying it. It's a masterpiece. But the town in Pennsylvania, Centralia, is an inspiration for the town in that first game for the town of Silent Hill. Because in Centralia, Pennsylvania, and I believe 1962, underground, it was a huge mine, coal mine. And somehow, I don't remember how, people just say it accidentally happened. Somebody threw garbage, and either way, it caught fire, and it still burns today. it's supposed to burn for like another 200 years. Like that's how much coal is down there. There are parts of that city that you can't go into because they have it blocked off. Nobody lives there anymore. Like I said, there were some people living there up until a few years ago, but they finally are all gone. But there's these pipes, these smokestacks for all of that to come out because it's burning underneath. The highway that was by there, they call it Graffiti Highway because people went out there and tagged it all up. That has now been they have sand that they put all over it so that people won't go over there. But those who are seeking the city because of the game and everything and its connections, they have found it. Like you can find it on YouTube. Now, if we had more time, we would be able to find more of that stuff, but at least got to get a picture of the Centralia sign and also the old like first responder hub that they had there where I think it was like fire and EMS. There was a truck in there, but here's the crazy thing. When I took a picture by it, there was a light on inside, which is kind of creepy because it hasn't been in use in I don't know how many years. Someone was there. I don't know who, but it was kind of creepy. But that was our time coming back and everything. And again, I hope that all of you had an excellent Christmas. There was way more stuff that happened, but I'm going to leave that there. And we are going to jump in to these stories. So I remember being in dispatch and working New Year's Eve. And, a lot of times there wasn't a lot going on. But when stuff did hit, it hit and it would hit fast. And we would be in there taking these calls, looking up at the time. We're like, oh, it's almost time. And I think it was more towards the end of my dispatch career was when we were starting to do more food, bringing in more food and everything and ringing in the time together. I don't remember if we had like any poppers or things. I think we had hats one year, but I do remember working my fair share of New Year's Eves, and it was a lot of fun. Even though I missed it with my family, it was a lot of fun being there with my public safety family and all of us ringing it in together, people calling over the radio, sending messages, Happy New Year, Happy New Year. And then shortly after that, sometimes it would go to hell and we would be working nonstop. And I worked midnight shift all the time, except for it was either a 3 or 4 month stint. I can't remember how long our rotations lasted that way because when I went to mornings when I got promoted to supervisor, it was the only like full on mornings that I had was during that time. So yeah, I do remember, and I remember actually the one of the stints that I did, or one of the shifts rather. I think it was an overtime one, and I got home around 11 maybe. I don't know, something like that. It was an overtime shift, but the reason I remember this specifically is because when I got home to the apartment that my wife and I and our son Logan lived in at that time, everyone was there. Like my whole family, like my mom, my siblings, my grandmother. This is how long ago it was, and a bunch of cousins. And I had kind of a small apartment, so it wasn't that big. It was hot in there. I think we had to open up a window. That's how hot it was. But I got there just before it was the new year, and we celebrated and everything, and it was a lot of fun. But being in dispatch, there were a lot of phone calls that we would take, and then we would just go to the next one. And I remember New Year's Eve where someone called in for the next morning. So us working our 4:30 to 4:30, because I'm thinking at this time I was a supervisor, I think. And I volunteered for the time. Either I volunteered or I got forced right off the bat. But the reason I say this is because I got the chance to choose the time that I wanted. So I'm pretty sure I volunteered. But I ended up working from the evening, the day prior, all the way up until 9 in the morning the next day on New Year's Day. And I was on phones, and man, I was losing it by that time because I remember going through this long stint of phone calls, and then there was nothing going on, and I'm just like downing coffee, excuse me, to stay awake because I was the only one on phones. and and I had to be there, for that overtime shift and everything. And it was crazy. I even remember exactly which console I was sitting in. If you walk into our dispatch center, there's 5 consoles. It's almost like a horseshoe. And when you walk in and turn right immediately, that console that's right there, that's for the supervisor. Now, because it was 3 minimum throughout the week and 4 throughout the weekend, no one really sat there because there was always 4 of us all together that were going to be working. But if we had, like weather, like a lot of weather that was going on or something crazy that we needed an extra person, that's when people usually sat at that one console in front. Now, when you walk in, instead of going to that supervisor console, if you just walk straight, there are 2 consoles there, and that's for main phones. On the other side directly is our backup phones and radios. That was our lean position, and that's for NCIC, like running plates, warrants, all of that. But you were also backup phones and backup radios in that one spot. And sometimes, man, that spot would get hot, and it was a lot of fun. It was fun because you've got so much stuff that's going on. That's what I mean is fun, not the craziness that's coming in. I just mean that you're doing backup for both and you're running plates and everything, and you're just moving, moving. Sometimes that spot, there would be nothing going on and you're just chilling and you're thinking, give me a plate to run, something. I need something to do other than eating. And then on the other side of that console was the main law enforcement radios. So law enforcement for us would be state troopers, deputies, DNR officers, city PD, as well as animal control and corrections, as well as let's see, what else was there? Court officers, like all of that was on that one console, and we were running that as one person running it. So you've got all of that going in. So that one on the side that's furthest to the window, walking in all the way down, that phone console, that's where I was sitting during this story. So all of these calls are coming in, and I remember we're just kind of talking, thinking about like, well, I wonder what we're going to hear about, because it was just New Year's Eve, and you know how it goes. New Year's Eve happens, people are partying it up, probably waking up and thinking, how did I even get here? You've got all kinds of things that are going on. And I get a phone call that comes in. 911, where's your emergency? And there's a lady. And I can hear a guy in the background. And she gives me her address right away. And she says that her and her husband are the property owners of this apartment complex. And they were going this morning just to check out the building, go through the floors, make sure like nothing crazy happened. Because they own the property. So they were just going through. But as I'm talking to her, she starts laughing. And I hear the husband in the background say, you need to stop. You need to stop laughing. And I'm at this point, like, I've got my hand up to my mouth and I'm biting my hand because I'm trying not to laugh because she's laughing so hard. And she goes, she's she's like, "Sir, I I don't even know how to say this. I I really don't know how to say this." And I said, "Okay, well, take your time. You know, I'm here. What is it that's going on? I will send an officer out to check out whatever it is." And she goes, You might need an ambulance too." And I said, "Okay, so is this like a medical? Like I'm trying to figure out what is going on." And she goes, "Okay, okay. So on one of the floors of the apartment complex that my husband and I own, we we and she's laughing, and the guys in the background is like, "Stop. This could be serious. Stop. This is not funny. This stuff is probably being recorded." Which he was right. It was being recorded because we record everything. So I'm trying not to laugh, and I said, "Ma'am, go ahead, continue. What is it that's going on so we can get help out there for you guys?" And she goes, "Okay, okay. Uh, so it's one of the floors that's there. Um, I think it's like the third floor. There is each floor has its own laundry room." And I said, "Okay, okay. They each have their laundry room, okay." And she goes, "And sir, I'm so embarrassed." And I said, "Ma'am, it's okay. What is it? What did you find?" But this wasn't a what did you find? It was also like, who did you find? And she goes, "Okay, so in the laundry room, I heard snoring, and I thought maybe someone is just snoring really loud from one of the rooms." And one of the apartments. So I'm walking through and I'm getting closer, and it's getting louder and louder, and then I realize it's coming from the laundry room, and then I see something that I never expected that I would see. And I said, "What did you see?" And she goes, "Sir, there's a man who's currently in the laundry room, passed out. He must have been drinking. He must be drunk, because I mean there's bottles all over, but that's not the thing that I just." And I said, "You're doing good. You're doing great. Let's continue. What else happened with this person? Is he hurt? Is there something?" She goes, "I don't think he's hurt at all." She goes, "There's bottles everywhere. He smells of alcohol. He's passed out. He's asleep. He's snoring, but he's also butt naked." And at that point, she starts laughing so much harder, and she goes, "But sir, that's not the rest." And I'm like, "There's more." I mean, I didn't say that to her. I was thinking it in my head. I thought, there's more to this? What is going on? So she ends up saying, "It doesn't just smell of alcohol, okay?" It's like she had to take a deep breath before she told me. And she goes, "He also threw up everywhere and shit all over the place." And she starts laughing so hard, like I did just now. And I started laughing with her. See, we're supposed to remain professional, but she was laughing so much I couldn't hold it in anymore. And I started laughing with her, and the guy, her husband's in the background going, "Stop laughing." And she goes, "He's laughing too." And you can just hear him go, "Oh, okay." But I couldn't help it. Like seriously, there was nothing else I could do. There was no holding that back in, dude. None. I could not hold it. I had to laugh. I've I felt kind of bad, but I had to laugh. Um, and I said, "Okay, well, so I start going through the rest of my questioning. There was no weapons. The dude wasn't hurt. Like, she checked on him. He was asleep. And so I'm on the phone still, and I said, "Okay, well, I'm going to keep you on the phone for just a moment, just in case anything changes. Like, if he runs out, naked or something, like, I'm going to keep you on the phone for just a moment, okay? Just stand by really quick." And she's laughing. She's just laughing as I mute my microphone, because I told her too. I said, "I'm just going to mute my microphone really quick, and I'm not even going to put you on hold. I'm just going to mute my microphone so that you don't hear me toning this stuff out." And she says, "Okay." So I mute my microphone. She's laughing hysterically. Her husband is giving her crap about it. Not like being a dick or anything. It was more like, someone's going to hear, like, it's going to make you sound insensitive or whatever. That's kind of how his response was. And so I put the information in. We put it out over the air for the officer who's working in the city. And I tone out EMS, low priority, to go and check this guy out just to make sure he's all right. Officer gets on scene and he's like, "Is EMS coming too?" And we're like, "Yeah, they're rolling. Just keep us updated when you get over there, just to, make sure scene is safe and all that other stuff." But I'm surprised that the officer didn't say, "Can I get a description?" Because we'd have to say, "Look for the only guy in a laundry room who's naked and has poo and vomit all over the place." So, oh man. So I get back on the line with the caller and stuff, and I tell her, like, the officer at this point, rewinding a little bit, at this point the officer was on his way. I said, "The officer's on the way over there. EMS is going to head out there as well." So, um, I as I'm talking to her, she goes, "I see the officer pulling up." And I said, "All right." I said, "I'm going to go ahead and let you go. And thank you for calling. Just make sure to show the officer where the person is, and have a happy new year." She goes, "You too, sir. Thank you so much. And yeah, I hope this guy, what a way to start the new year, right?" And I said, "I know." They go and they find the guy, and the officer's like, "Central, so go ahead and have EMS roll in. This person is fine. They're awake right now, but they are naked, and it is as you described." There's stuff all over the place. He goes, "So I'm just gonna have them check him out, and that'll be that. But I'll be 10-5 out here," which 10-5 for us meant that we don't have to check him anymore. So, like, to check to make sure that he's okay, because when someone checks out somewhere or has a traffic stop, we check every few minutes to make sure that they're okay. But when they tell us, and this isn't the same for every dispatch center, every center is different. So, but for us, if an officer said they're 10-5, that meant you don't have to check them or anything. But after 15 minutes, we would check just to make sure that they were still out there. Because sometimes the officers would forget, and they'd go, "Oh, I'm actually on the road." Or they would check out for lunch, and we'd be like, "Okay, I guess they're not at that house anymore." So, yeah, the person ended up being well. No one transported, nothing. But that was one of those where you remain as professional as possible, but sometimes you just got to laugh with the callers. The callers know that you are also human, and it is a human taking this call. We're relating. Yeah, it's a crazy call, but either way, that's that story. Oh, just talking about it, man, I can just see in my head how that looked, but also I can see the husband being like, "Shh, like, stop. Stop laughing, until she ends up telling him he's laughing too. But I couldn't help it. I just couldn't help it, man. Oh, that was such a good one. That's one that I will never forget. But along with that as well, there when I very first started out dispatching, this was Frostproof, Florida. And this was right in the beginning. Again, when I started. So, oh man, it was pretty crazy. Because I'm on my own, and I'm working, and I'm trying to figure all of this stuff out. And it's New Year's Eve. I'm in dispatch. I was working the 2P to 10P shift. And I might have worked over an hour to help somebody else out who was doing like a party or something like that before they came in to relieve me. I don't remember for sure, but um I do remember I was working that 2 to 10 at least. And while I was working, I was starting to get calls coming in as I was getting later. Calls for fireworks, calls for barking dogs, calls for neighbors with loud music. So there was just all kinds of stuff that was coming in. And I'm ready to go home because once 10 p.m. hits, I am out. I'm going home. Mom and grandma and everyone who is there, my siblings, they all already had been eating some bomb ass tamales. And I wanted some tamales so bad. And I told them to save me some. According to them, they had plenty, but I was like, I don't know, man. Mexicans, tamales, you know how we do. So I was just hoping there was going to be some left. And, like I said, we were having to get together and everything that was going to be going on there. So it's close to the end of my shift. And I'm just excited that I'm going to get to go home. I think this was going to be the first New Year's Eve that I was going to spend in Florida. And so I was excited. And I'm taking phone calls, and then I'm just kind of watching the clock. All right, we're getting close. Got about 30 or so minutes. It might have been more like 40. Either way, I was counting. And then I get a phone call. Frostproof 911, where's your emergency? Get this phone call, and it is for loud noise. It's a loud noise complaint that is going on. And they tell me the road. They're not sure the address. They give me the cross streets. And then I thought, oh no. And I said, is this house right on the corner? And they go, yeah, it is. They said there's lights like by on over the deck that's there at the house. And I sat there. I didn't say anything to the caller, but that was my house. It was my house. I was like, no. Oh, why? Why? And I remember telling my mom, like, don't have the music too loud because they're gonna call me there and I'm gonna be there. And they did it anyway. So the person goes, oh, so you know the house? And I said, yeah, you know what? I do know the house. And they said, oh, other people have been calling, huh? And I said, something like that. Yeah. I'll get an officer out there to have them turn it down. Don't worry. And they're like, all right, thank you so much. I know it's New Year's Eve. It's just, I actually have to work tomorrow and I have to get up early. And I said, no worries. I completely understand. And hang up with them. And I thought, how do I do this? This is my house. Okay, just do it as normal. I mean, because that's what you would do anyway. It's just I had never had a phone call to my house like that, and me being dispatch, so I didn't know if there was like a different procedure, because it's my home. So so I was like, okay. So I put it in. I put the information in, and I call the officer over the radio, and I'm like, Frost proof to 107. I don't know if it was 107. I can't remember the officer's number, but it was um he he keys up, and he goes, go ahead. And I said, respond out for loud noise complaint at such and such address. You'll be able to find it. It's right on the corner of the cross streets of blah, blah, blah. And there are Christmas lights that are above the deck that is there at the house. And I'm pretty sure it was Officer Land who was going out there, which was he's an awesome dude. Always loved him. He was great. Super funny. And he goes, 10-4 Central, I'll be en route. Well, then he calls up to dispatch. And, or actually, he might have been sitting in front. I'm trying to remember now because I think he walked in and he goes, hey, isn't that your address? And I said, yeah, that's my house. And he starts laughing and he goes, I'll be en route. And gets in the car, gets on the radio to do it as well. So that, because the chief was always listening, he was always listening in on the scanner. Then I get a phone call on the non-emergency line. Frostproof, this is Ricardo. And it's the chief. It's Chief Bird. And he goes, Ricardo, isn't that your house? And I said, yes, sir, it is. And he goes, are you going to warn them? And I said, am I allowed to? And he goes, I would at least call your mom to let her know that someone is en route there. And I said, okay. I said, I didn't know if I could tell them to stop what they're doing. And he goes, just call them. And I said, okay. So I'm calling and I'm calling and calling. And it's not that far from the house or from the PD to the house. And then finally my mom picks up the phone. And she goes, oh, Richie, mijo, are you almost home? Are you almost on your way? Are you calling to let me know you're on your way? And I said, Mom, you guys need to turn the music down. And she goes, oh, did somebody call? She's like, did someone call? And I said, yes. Someone called? Yes. I said, someone called saying that you guys were being very loud, that the music was really loud. Everybody is being loud or whatever. I said, they gave me the description of the house. We're the only house that has those lights. And she goes, oh, they gave it away. I was like, Mom, I said, Officer Land is just, she goes, Richie, someone's here. I got to go. So the officer checks out. 107 Frostproof. 107, go ahead. Show me out at the residence of blah, blah, blah for the loud noise complaint. No need for checks. 10-4, copy that. And he's out there for a while. And then he finally comes back. Finally comes back. And when he comes back to the PD, I remember him walking in, and he's just, as he's walking in, I can see his face. As he's walking in, he's just like laughing as he's walking in. And then he comes to the back where I'm sitting for dispatch, and he starts rubbing his tummy. And I said, what's that all about? I said, did they feed you? They fed you, didn't they? And he just starts going, those tamales were so good. I hope there's some left for you. I was like, no, no. He ate my tamales. Oh, man. That sucked. There were a couple left. I was able to get some, but man, having to go through that was so embarrassing. It's so funny though. I mean, it's funny now. It was funny then. But initially in those moments, getting a phone call, like it was it was it was not cool. It was not cool at all, because then I could not live that down But it was pretty hilarious. When I got home, my mom's like, "We fed him." And I said, "Well, that's good." Oh, it was so funny though. It just I'll say this really quick. It makes me think of a time that I was in dispatch, and this is in Michigan. I was working an overtime shift in the morning, and I get a phone call from someone for a car that's weaving all over the roadway. And I they're like, it's a purple Pontiac Grand Prix. It's got a very loud exhaust. And I knew that my dad was coming home from work. He had been working a midnight shift, and he was always telling me, he's like, "Oh, I always get really tired." He goes, "But I hate coffee and stuff, so I just kind of push through, or I'll stop at a rest area." And so I thought, "Oh my God, that's my dad." And the person could no longer follow the car anymore. They ended up taking an exit. So we put it out over the air. I hang up with the caller, and I yell over to the dispatcher on the radio, one of my coworkers, and I said, "Hey, I'm pretty sure that's my dad. I'm pretty sure." And they're like, "Dude, call him." So we let the officer know, because the trooper was hauling ass, tried to catch him, and they told him, it might be possible that it's one of our dispatchers' parents. And they're like, "See if he can get a hold of them." So I called my dad, and he's like, "Oh, hey, mijo, what's going on?" And I said, "Are you on such and such highway right now?" And he goes, "Did somebody call on me?" I said, "You just got out of work, didn't you?" And he goes, "I'm so tired." He goes, "I was probably weaving." He goes, "I'm going to stop at the gas station." So he told me what gas station he was stopping at. He goes, "I'm going to get like a Coke or something to try to pep me up." And I said, "All right." I said, "Well, just letting you know the trooper's coming for you." So, so we let the trooper know, and the trooper stopped there at the gas station, talked to my dad. They were actually friends. They knew each other and stuff, but it was hilarious. I was like, "You need to pull over, because if you're that tired, you need to pull over." So he pulled over at gas station, got a pop, and chilled there for a little bit, talking with the officer, and then they split. But I was like, "Oh man, what the heck is going on?" But those are just some stories that I wanted to share with you. Stories of some past times on New Year's Eve working in dispatch. And I want to close it off with something. Whew, this is going to be a little hard for me, so bear with me. And for those who are watching the video, you'll be able to see this picture, but obviously those who are listening to the audio, you won't be able to see the picture. But I'll explain here in a moment. So, thinking about that time in the beginning when I was in dispatch, my dad and I were not on the best terms that first year that I was gone. And we weren't really talking. And I was doing my thing in dispatch, and I had my mom and my grandmother, my siblings there, but I had cousins and uncles that were out there as well. And the two uncles that I had out there were my Theo Steve, which Theo is Spanish for uncle. So I had my Theo Steve, and I had my Theo Emmett. And they treated me like I was their son, like I was one of their sons. And they were like fathers to me. And a few years ago, my Theo Steve passed away. And just 2 days ago, my Theo Emmett passed away. And, it's it's tough, because like I said, they were like fathers to me, especially my Theo Emmett. And it was awesome in the beginning to spend so much time with them, but especially my Theo Emmett, who really kind of took me under his wing. And I mean, both of them are really proud of me for my work in dispatch. But my Theo Emmett, he was watching more and keeping more track of some of the stuff that I was doing with dispatch, with the podcast, with the mental health and wellness stuff that I do with dispatchers to share their stories and help them get it out and everything and not bottle it up. And so a few times when I saw him towards, the end, he told me that he was proud of me and everything that I've done. And the last time I saw him, he was he was alert, he was awake. We were we were joking about Bonanza and Gunsmoke. And I think we were even talking about MASH. But either way, we were talking about these old shows. And I remember him asking, he's like, how do you know these? Because they were before your time. And I said, well, there's channels that show all of these shows. And I remember them. And I remember, just pop culture trivia. So we were talking, and, my son Logan was there with me, and he got to talk with him and everything. And my mom and one of my sisters was there too. Like, we were all there just, hanging out because he'd been battling cancer for a while. And, he started doing really well. And then just these last few months, it just started to take a toll and it continued to spread. And like I said, just a couple days ago, he passed away. So I do have a story that I want to share. And I'm going to put his picture on the screen right now. Oh man. Yeah, this is a little tougher than I thought it was going to be. Especially because he looks like my grandmother as well. And as you know, my story with my grandmother. But my Theo Emmett was a great storyteller as well. I'll miss his voice. There was something that he would say all the time when he was talking, and it was like an type, but in Spanish it's este. So he would be talking and he would go este, and I kind of sound like him if I put my voice a little deeper. But that's one of the things I'll miss the most is just hearing just that little bit, but also his laugh and his smile, as you see here in this picture. So this story was from when I first started working in dispatch. I was in training, and it was, I believe, Christmas Day. And my Theo Emmett and my cousin Emmett, his son, they came to pick me up. And at that time, there was still Michelob and Michelob Light, if you remember. It was before those got decimated and it just went to Michelob Ultralight or whatever the hell it is, just water. And there was a case of Michelob Light bottles, and we were going back to their house. And this was like 9 or 10 in the morning. And my cousin and I, when we got to the house, we were already tying one on just because it was Christmas Day. We were all together and we're like, why not? I had to go to work the next day, but I was like, I'll be fine. And I remember my Theo Emmett, he kept saying, be careful, be careful. And I was like, don't worry, Theo, I got this. Well, then we got into some Bacardi as well. Now, this is my cousin and I. I think my uncle maybe had a beer or two that whole day. I don't remember him drinking. uh, that much at all, especially because he was the one driving us around. So yeah, throughout that whole day, it was like one or two, but he didn't start until way later. So it was just my cousin and I, and we were at the house. My tia Rosa and my cousin Elida and my grandma are there, and they're making tamales. So we're like eating tamales as they're coming out, and they're like, "Stop! You're gonna eat them all." And my cousin and I are just laughing and stuff. We start playing cards. And I remember the funniest thing. So here's the thing. My grandmother was so funny too. And she was always game if it was all in the context of humor. So they wanted she my cousins, all of us, we wanted her to take a picture. But this picture was my grandma with this sombrero, this big old hat on, and this poncho on, and she was holding a bottle of tequila. It was the funniest thing, and I don't know where they have that picture, but I need to find it. I need to see if they have it somewhere because it's one of the funniest things, man. One of the funniest things. And it's one that I see it so clear in my head. We end up going to visit some friends, and at that point, what I remember is arm in arm with the people there that I don't know. These are friends of my uncle, of my Theo Emmett, and my cousin Emmett. And we're just like arm in arm singing songs. I don't even remember what songs they were, but I remember I knew the words and they were in Spanish. And then I don't remember anything. And then the next thing I remember is I am in the truck sitting up front with my cousin. It was just him and I in the truck with our heads down on the dashboard. And I look at him and I said, "Dude, are you all right?" He goes, "No, I'm not all right." He goes, "My stomach is all messed up and I don't feel good at all." I said, "Dude, I think we had too much beer." And he goes, "I think so as well." And my Theo Emmett is out talking with everyone, just hanging out, and I can hear him saying, "Yeah, those guys are lightweights. They're over there." Like they can't hang. But he wasn't drinking anyway. Oh, it was so funny though. But it had rained earlier, if I remember correctly, and there was mud, and we couldn't back out because we were in the mud a little bit in that driveway. So Theo Emmett is telling us like, "Hey, you guys help those people push us out." And I said, "Theo, I can't. I can't." I said, "The world is spinning right now." I said, "I feel horrible." And they get us out and we get back to the house. At that time, I think was when my uncle had a couple beers, probably because he had to deal with my cousin and I. And my cousin and I are still sitting in the truck, and it's nighttime. My uncle is inside, his dad, and my mom and everybody is there. And I remember seeing Ricardo, and I was like, "Oh, dude, mom's here." I'm like, "I'm gonna get in trouble," and I'm like, "This is not good." And so he started saying, "Dude, I gotta throw up, man." I said, "No." I said, hold it in, or go inside." Nope, he lost it, and then I lost it. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be gross. All of you have vomited, okay? The stuff that we talk about on here. Either way, that happened. We clean it up, finally get out of the truck, and that night when I got home, like my mom let me have it. And my grandmother is just laughing at me. She's like, "You're going to learn the hard way." And I was like, "Yep, I am." And I had to go to work the next day. I had to be in at 9, not at 6, because again, I'm in training, so they only have me in there for so many hours. Excuse me. And I was sick the whole night. The whole night. And my brother, Nando, I love you so much, dude, because my brother stayed up with me all night to make sure that I was okay. There were points where I had to drink water just so that I could get sick to get the rest out of my system. I barely ate that next morning. I probably only had a couple hours of sleep. Finally go in at that at around 9 for the shift, and I felt like trash, like straight up garbage. Straight up garbage. And I remember excuse me, the Sergeant Higgins, she could probably smell the alcohol just pouring out of my pores, dude. I showered up and everything, but I was sweating it out. And she goes, "So, Ricardo, it looks like you might have the flu or something." And she winks at me. She knew. She knew. And I said, "Yeah, I got sick pretty bad overnight." And she goes, "Take the rest of the day off." And I said, "I can't because I need," and she goes, "Don't worry, you're in training, so you're still going to get paid." And she's just looking at me, and she gets closer, and I said, "Thank you for taking mercy on me." Oh, and I went home, and I had 2 days off after that, which was awesome. And I came back, and she goes, "How are you feeling?" And I said, "Way better, thank you so much." And then I busted ass working in dispatch. But I will never forget that, but also because, my uncle, my Theo Emmett, he took care of us. Excuse me. And again, while I was there, I remember visiting his house a lot. Almost every day I was there, and we just talked. And he shared stories with me of what it was like growing up and how he and my dad interacted, early on to the way it is now, and how, they had this mutual respect for each other. And I remember my dad coming to visit after he and I had patched things up and came to an understanding. And my dad was at my house, and my Theo Emmett shows up, and he and my dad went out for lunch, and they had a long talk and just really buried the hatchet on everything. And I just always had a good relationship with Theo Emmett. And the the funny stories that he would tell, and the ones that I would tell him, especially after dispatch, things we would talk about. And I would go and visit, and Tia Rosa, his wife, Tia is Spanish for aunt. Um, she'd make dinner or whatever, and we would just be there talking, or I'd go for breakfast, or anything like that. Like I said, they treated me like I was their own kid. And the look on his face here, like, this is what I'll remember the most. The Omet laughing like this and smiling and just enjoying life. So thank you, Theo, for everything, for taking me in and treating me as one of your own, and instilling wisdom and strength and stories and time. I will cherish every one of those moments. And again, I thank you for all of it. But I know we will see each other again. And we'll get to talk about all the other funny stuff that has happened. But I love you, Theo. And to my cousins, to Emmett, Elida, Omar, all of you, Theo Rosa, I love you guys. And I will be seeing you all soon in Florida to celebrate Theo's life. And in going to the wrap up of this episode, I know that was kind of heavy there at the end, but I guess just to remember how short life actually is. And in 911, we see that daily. We are reminded of how short life can be. So take care of each other. Be there for each other. This is the last day of 2025. Let's go into 2026 strong. And I was going to try to have this up so that I could put it on the screen. But let me see if I can find it here. But before I get to this quote, to wrap this up fully, I just want to say thank you again for everything, for the support, for the love. There's a lot of stuff coming up in 2026, especially some announcements, maybe even a video that you will see probably next month. But again, thank you. I wouldn't be able to do this without all of you, your support, and just for everything that I do. But there's a lot more coming, especially for the community. More public safety showcase sessions coming up. Over 200 hours worth of continuing education is there in the Trenches community, and it's all free. So make sure to check that out. More amazing episodes from Within the Trenches podcast, the partnership with Rapid SOS, and all of the episodes that I've been trying to catch up with for the Imagine Listening podcast will be coming up as well. 2026 is going to be even more awesome than 2025. And you're going to see more powerful stories, more reels, more TikToks, more classes, more speeches, keynotes, closing keynotes, all of it. Be prepared because there is a ton coming towards you, and I cannot wait for you to see it and for me to announce it. This episode has been sponsored by InDigital, a leader in next-gen core services, as well as Rapid SOS, safer together. Big shout out to subscribers of the podcast. All of you who are watching, listening, supporting, sharing, thank you so very much. To reach out or be a guest on the show, whether you are new to dispatch, seasoned dispatcher, or retired, I would love to have you on the show to share your story. You can simply go to links.co/IAM911, and that is links with 2 i's.co/IAM911. You'll find everything there. Social media, email, the link to be on an episode, the link to listen to the latest episodes of Within the Trenches podcast, as well as the Imagine Listening podcast, where you can purchase the Imagine Listening books, as well as the free link to the Trenches community. Check it out. Please join. A lot of amazing stuff coming for that one. And then also podcast and dispatch merch. You'll find it all there. Once again, it is links with 2 eyes.co/IM911, and you'll find it all there. This can be seen on Facebook, YouTube, X, as well as LinkedIn Live. And then you can also check out clips, whether it be on Facebook Reels, Instagram Reels, or TikTok. There's a ton there. Make sure to check them out. And then you can listen 24/7 on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and withinthetrenches.net. And finally, to close this out, for everything that I've talked about today, the tribute to my Theo Emmett, rest in peace, Theo, and everyone we've lost this year and going into 2026. When I found this quote, there are 3 or 4 different people that are cited as the person who made this quote. So instead, I'm just going to say unknown. So here it is. Life is too short to wake up in the morning with regrets. So love the people who treat you right. Forget about the ones who don't, and believe that everything happens for a reason. If you get a chance, take it. If it changes your life, let it. Nobody said it'd be easy. They just promised it would be worth it. Happy New Year, everyone. And we will see you all in the next one.
Imagine listening to someone's worst day every single day. Imagine listening as someone experiences life through their worst nightmare to the miracle of birth or a life saved. I'm Ricardo Martinez, a former 911 dispatcher, and for years, I've been recording the voices of a hidden world, ours. I've provided a space for 911 dispatchers to share their powerful stories. It started as a peer support session and continues. Dispatchers sitting together, sharing out loud, or writing down what they couldn't say. Some stories will grip you. Stories of heartbreak, resilience, and calls that haunt us long after the line goes quiet. But imagine listening is more than heavy emotion. It's about healing. It's about laughing through the chaos, lifting each other up, and reminding the world that dispatchers are human too. The lighthearted will balance the heavy. Experience the power of storytelling, a podcast for the thin gold line and those who want to understand it. This is Imagine Listening. Your worst day is our everyday. Subscribe now wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.